Pickleball can be tough, but it doesn't need to be that tough.
We're going to show you 7 pickleball hacks that will make your life way easier on the court and help you win more matches as a result.
And if you like our content, go ahead and subscribe, and let's get into it. The first hack that's going to make your life a lot easier on the court is knowing that the center of the court is now your best friend. If you've ever got a doubt in your mind where you should be placing your shots, you should always aim back towards the middle. And the reason for that is actually pretty simple. The net is lower in the center part of the court, so that means every time that you shoot there, you're more likely to make the shot over the net and your shots go in as a result. And there's a couple other key factors I want to break down for you. So I'm going to show you 3 scenarios where you should always be aiming for the center if possible to up your chances of winning every single point. Let's break it down. The first time you should always be thinking, hey, I need to hit the ball back towards the middle is when you're pulled out wide in a dinking rally. So let me show you what I mean. Let's say you're hitting a dink rally, you're hitting cross court, and eventually your opponent pushes a ball on the far side of the court, causing you to step outside and decide where to hit your next shot. Now, there's a couple reasons you should always hit back middle here rather than down the line. The first and most obvious, hopefully, is that if you hit down the line, you're very likely to get ernied. Because the moment you hit a little bit too high of a ball down the line because you need to clear a higher part of the net, your opponent is much more likely to come around and take an ernie from the other side. So whenever I see my opponent hitting down the line when they're pulled out wide on a dink, I know to go for an ernie. So that's why I recommend that players who are pulled out wide on dinks, go ahead and hit a ball back towards middle when possible. Much safer option and prevents the ernie altogether. The second reason going back down the middle makes more sense is because it presents less attacking angles for your opponent. And what I mean by that is when you hit back down the middle, you shorten your opponent's margin on the other side of the kitchen. Let's pretend I'm the opponent. If I get a ball down the middle and I want to speed up, I now only have half of the court to work with. Whereas if I were to get a ball out wide, I have much more room to hit an aggressive cross-court shot or even one down the line. So just by retreating down the middle with your dinks, you give your opponent less court to work with. The next place you almost always want to be aiming down the middle is on your returns. One of the biggest reasons why is it simply takes out the guesswork on your end. If you already know where you're going to aim your shot before you return, you're more likely to hit it there because you're not overthinking it during your shot. And on top of that, it's the place with the best margin. Again, you've got more net clearance, but you've also got the most court to work with because even if you were to miss a little left or a little right, it's very likely to stay in bounds. Whereas if you aim really far out wide, you're more likely to hit the ball out if you do miss your target by a small margin. So that's number 1 reason. But number 2, it also makes your opponents have to communicate after the return. They have to talk to themselves and decide, hey, who's gonna take the middle ball here? So if you do manage to hit roughly towards the middle of the court on your return, your opponents have to decide if they're gonna step over and either take a forehand or if the person on the right side is going to step over and take a backhand. We like it when our opponents have to communicate because they're more likely to make an error. And the final reason the middle is so important on returns is because when you aim down the middle, it gives your opponents less angle to hit hard passing shots. What I mean by that is similar to like we talked about with the dinks. When you get a ball out wide, you have more court to work with to either hit cross court or down the line, and that's more margin for your opponent to hit a strong passing shot. Whereas when you aim down the middle, again, there's less opportunity for your opponent to hit a strong passing shot, just like we talked about with the dinks. The final place I want to encourage you to always be aiming down the middle when possible is on your third shot drops. A third shot drop is most likely to go in when you have the best net clearance. We've talked about it the entire time because it's true. You're really looking for the most amount of net clearance, and a third shot drop is essential to be getting those in every single time. On top of that, by hitting down the middle, you do prevent an ernie from your opponent, just like we talked about with the dinks. So for all the reasons we've already mentioned, third shot drops are just as important as returns and dinks to be going down the middle.
The second hack applies to one of the most difficult shots in pickleball, and that's the third shot drop. Whenever you're starting pickleball and even all the way up to maybe when you're a 5-0, executing this shot correctly is extremely difficult. I'm going to show you a hack to make it way easier. Most people, when they're thinking about hitting a third shot drop, their entire goal is to get this ball to go over the net and land in their opponent's kitchen. But there's a much simpler way to achieve the same result, but by focusing on a very simple task, and that is to get your shot to peak on your side of the court around this kitchen area. What I mean by that is whenever I'm hitting this ball, I want the trajectory of my ball to be such that it rises, peaks, and then drops over the net. This is what I would consider to be the perfect third shot drop. It's a ball that rises up, peaks on your side of the court, and then cascades over the net into your opponent's kitchen. The reason that this is so important is because when that ball is peaking on your side of the court, when it lands over here, it will be landing in the front half of the kitchen more than likely, which means that your opponents are going to have a harder time speeding that ball back up at you. You have to remember that on the third shot, our main goal is to start hitting defensive shots that allow us to move forward to the kitchen. And if we're feeding our opponent shots that they can easily take out of the air or easily speed up at us, it makes our lives much more difficult making it up here. So you want to make sure that your shot is defensive enough that they don't really have a lot of options and they can't really attack you. Now, another thing that will make your third shot drops more effective is if you can add some top spin to your shot. And how you do this is by getting below the ball and then brushing up the backside of it so it rolls off your paddle and spins like this. That way, when it hits the ground, it'll stay lower towards the ground. It'll be moving with pace towards your opponent. The bonus hack for this, which is kind of similar to shot peaking on your third shot drop, is that you want the ball to peak on your side as well. So when my opponent hits the ball to me, the ball will bounce off the ground, it will rise up, and I want to wait until this ball peaks before I make contact. That ensures that this ball is as high as it will possibly get so that I can get below it, and also the ball has the least amount of pace so that I can apply my own pace and spin to it. And just to clear it up, one thing that is unavoidable is that in your third shot drops, there will be times where you or your partner leave a ball that's a little bit too high and that you will get attacked on. That's totally fine. You just have to get good at resetting from transition and start working towards hitting more and more defensive shots until you can finally move all the way up to the kitchen and start being offensive.
The next hack that is going to totally change your game is simply split stepping. One of the biggest problems we see with pickleball players is they like to run through their shots and they're not ready and balanced before the shot comes their way. What that means is you're more likely to make errors because when you're running through shots rather than already being balanced, you have to time many different moving parts of your body. Whereas if you're already split stepped and stable, then you have less to time and you can focus on simply hitting the shot that you need to execute in that moment. So we're gonna show you quickly how to split step and why that's gonna be so important to your game. The biggest thing about split stepping is the timing. A lot of players think they should split step after their opponent makes contact with the ball. That's actually a little bit incorrect and it takes away from the time that you have to react. You need to split step before your opponent makes contact with the ball. So right before they hit their shot, that's when you on the other side of the court should split step and get ready. Now when they do make contact, you're able to read what kind of shot they just hit and then move and react in a stable motion. That's why split stepping needs to happen before they make contact, not right when they make contact. It actually does make a pretty big difference. The next thing that separates beginners from advanced players is where they split step, especially in the midcourt. A lot of beginners like to run through the midcourt and make their way to the kitchen as fast as possible. I get it, it's fun to be offensive and it feels like this is a good position to even defend yourself, but advanced players know how to use the midcourt and that involves a lot of split stepping. So instead of sprinting your way to the kitchen after you hit a return or a third shot, you should slowly advance once your opponent is about to make contact, split step, and now you're ready to start hitting resets, and they're gonna be a lot easier when you're already balanced and locked, or you're able to pivot and get those resets back in play. So start using the midcourt, and split stepping is gonna be a game changer for using the midcourt to your advantage. And the final part about split stepping is it's not just your body, it also needs to be your paddle position. I would talk more about that, but that's actually hack number 4, so we'll give it a shay. Let's do it.
Hack number 4 is a simple way to make sure your paddle is in the correct position every single shot. It's really, really simple. We call this paddle tracing. All you have to do is imagine that there is a laser or a string that extends from the tip of your paddle, and you want that to always be pointing at the ball when it's on the other side of the court. So for example, let's just say that I hit a cross-court dink. After I hit this shot, I want to immediately, as I'm split-stepped, point my paddle where the ball is. That way, if they do decide to hit the ball back to me, my paddle is in a balanced position so that if it's hit to my backhand, I can take it with the backhand. If it's to my forehand, I can take it with the forehand. The common mistake is that when people hit cross-court shots specifically, they keep their paddle face open as if they had just hit the shot, and then the ball comes back to them and their paddle is way out of position, so they have to make an entirely way too large movement to get to their backhand, and this costs us precious time, which is time that we could be using to set up well for our shot. This also applies at the midcourt. So when you're in this transition area and you're split stepped, you want your paddle to be tracing the ball wherever it is on that side of the court. That way, when it's hit back to you, you're ready to respond. And of course, it also applies when you're returning, when you're hitting third shot drops from back here. Pretty much anywhere on the court, keeping your paddle tip pointing towards the ball is really important, but there are a couple of nuances. So one truth about pickleball is that you can defend more of your body with your backhand than you can your forehand. So as a right-handed player, if I wanted to defend the right side of my body, I can do it with my backhand. If I want to defend this side of my body with my backhand, anywhere, my backhand's pretty good. Forehand, it immediately gets awkward as soon as I turn to this position. And even on the right side of my body, I can defend with my backhand. So because of that reason, when we are paddle tracing, let's say the ball is right here, instead of being directly on the ball, I'd like to be a little bit angled to the left of it. That way I'm leaning more towards my backhand since I can take more shots with my backhand. The final reason why this is such a great hack is that it ensures that your paddle is always in the correct position to defend shots as well. So if I'm not paddle tracing, it's really easy to let my paddle hang down by my side and not be ready for speed ups at my chest. But instead of having to think about all that different stuff, if I just keep my paddle tip tracing the ball, I promise that my paddle will be in the correct position no matter what shot is coming my way, just by this one simple hack.
The next hack is probably the easiest that we have on the list. It's to take advantage of your paddle and paddle modifications. As you can see on my paddle, I have these little weights on the sides. These actually help me generate a little bit more power because I like to play with a little bit of head heaviness on the top of my paddle. That allows me to up my swing weight just a little bit and helps me follow through the ball and generate even more topspin with a head heavy paddle. But everyone has different play styles and you know what you need better than I do. A lot of people like to put weights on the sides of their paddles, right here and right here, because this can help the sweet spot expand pretty drastically. If you feel like you're missing your sweet spot of your paddle pretty regularly, it can be helpful to add weights on the sides so that it balances out the paddle better and you're more likely to make good contact even if you slightly miss the paddle face in its center. Another great place to add weight can be at the throat. We've got little outlines right here to show you what that means. This is probably most helpful for your hand speed. So if you're struggling to have fast hands at the kitchen, this helps put more weight towards the bottom of your paddle. It allows you to swing the paddle faster and improves your hand speed pretty drastically. So I recommend that if you feel like you have slow reaction time or you need a little bit faster hand speed. I've even seen people be as drastic as to add weight on the very bottom of their paddle. I don't personally like that too much because I feel like bottom weight makes it so your swings are really slow, but if you really need a more balanced paddle, that's even an option for you too. And if you're looking for a paddle overall to up your game, I personally recommend the Banger paddle from our friends at Enhance. This paddle has been a game changer and it's even got pre-selected areas like I was showing you to put weights. They've even got their custom balance pods that fit right on those weight markers, so pretty sweet feature. On top of that, the actual sweet spot is even bigger than most paddles on the market, so it's harder to make mishits, and it's got power. It's literally called a Banger paddle, so if you need a little extra force in your game, this is a great option for you. And it even has the maximum grit allowed in 2025 on a paddle, so it's super spinny and it's USA Pickleball approved. You can use it in your tournaments. It's really good for anything. And we've got a sweet discount for you. Just by using code CRACKED at checkout, you're gonna get $20 off the price, making it an exceptional deal, especially when compared to other things on the market. So check out the Banger paddle, definitely recommend. Let's get back to it.
One of the most common mistakes in pickleball is using a grip that is not optimal. So our next hack is to use the Continental grip, which is a great option for every shot in pickleball. Let me show you how to find this grip really easily. So this paddle, we've taken all the grip off so you can clearly see the bevels. This is bevel number 1, this is bevel number 2, this is bevel number 3. So you're gonna take the heel pad of your hand right here and place it on bevel number 1, just like that. And then take your index knuckle right here and place it on bevel number 2. So this is 1, and then this is 2. And then just like that, you're now in the Continental grip. And the reason why this grip is so effective is because it keeps your paddle pretty much balanced with a slight benefit towards your backhand. So if the ball's coming to my backhand, I can easily get it with my backhand. If it's coming to my forehand, I can easily get it with my forehand. And my paddle face doesn't have to change too much. I don't have to bend my wrist in a lot of weird positions. It's an extremely balanced grip, and it can work for dinks, it can work for counters, it can work for speed ups, it can work for drops, it can work for drives. The only place that this really doesn't work extremely well is on the serve, and we'll show you another option for that instead. On the serve, we're trying to get mostly power and spin, and we're hitting it with a forehand more often than not. So you want to use a grip that's conducive to hitting a forehand, and that grip is probably the semi-western. So like I said before, number 1, number 2, number 3. Put your heel pad on number 3 now, and then this one to the right of that is number 4. Put your index knuckle on number 4, and this is called the semi-western grip. Now whenever I go to make contact with the ball, I have to turn my paddle back, but naturally it's kind of pointing a little bit towards the ground, and that allows me to brush up the backside of the ball much easier than if this paddle was turned into the continental grip. So I'm able to get underneath the ball a little bit more, add a little more spin. And for a shot like the serve where you have full control over it, it makes way more sense to use a grip like this than probably the continental grip.
The last hack that we have for you is all about stacking. Stacking is a great way to make the most out of your strengths as a team and allows you to put potentially a stronger forehand or even a stronger player on the side that's more likely to receive the most amount of shots. The point with stacking is to work together as a team and prioritize your strengths. So for instance, I really like to hit strong forehands. I would say I have a pretty solid forehand drive. So when I have the option, I prefer to get a forehand in the middle whenever possible. But if Shay's serving on the left side and I'm on the right side, it's unlikely that I will receive a return that will allow me to utilize my strong forehand. So to fix that, all I have to do before Shay serves is step to his left. And then as soon as Shay hits his serve, he's going to shift to his right and I'm going to shift over. And now if a return comes down the middle, which is usually the most likely option, I get to utilize my strong forehand and potentially set us up with a powerful drive. So stacking is really simple on a serve, but it also works on the opposite side of the court as well. So I showed you the left side, but let's show you the right. Let's pretend I am the server and I want to get my way to the left side in order to utilize that strong forehand. All I have to do is have my partner, Shay, come to my right. And now that Shay's here, I hit my serve, and as soon as I make contact with my serve, I'm going to shift left, and then Shay's going to stay in his spot. Now I'm more likely to receive that strong forehand in the middle, and that sets us up as a team to finish the point and work together. Now, another way you can stack is off of the return. We just showed you how to stack when you're serving, but you are also able to do it off of the return. I'm gonna give you a little caveat here. This one requires a lot of movement, and I really do not recommend it for our less advanced players because it requires a lot of coordinating with your team. And if you don't execute it perfectly, it can really lead to some bad situations. But either way, I'll show it to you so you know what to do stacking on the return. To show you stacking on the return, let's pretend my opponents are serving on the other side of the court and I am the returner. What we're gonna do is Shay is going to show me a signal because we need to be communicating as a team. He will show me an open hand and put it behind his back like so. Once I see that symbol from my partner Shay, I know that he's calling for me to do a return stack. And what that means is after the opponent serves the ball, I'm going to try to return down the line. And as soon as I make contact with my return, we're going to switch. I'm gonna approach the kitchen as fast as I can. Shay's going to go to the right side. And now when we're at the kitchen, I'm more likely to receive forehands in the middle and potentially make some stronger plays. So stacking can be a great way to make the most of your team, and I definitely recommend it for our higher level players. Now you know these 7 pickleball hacks that are going to change your game.
If you like that video, please consider subscribing, and YouTube really thinks you're gonna like this video next. That one.
It's all the way there. It's perfect for you, for us.
Love you.
We love you.